Hello and welcome to this edition of Scott and Pops, or whatever we're naming it this week. Talk baseball. Uh, I forgot to pull up the standings because I am just wanting to see what how crazy. So, did you watch any baseball over the weekend? I know yesterday you watched Indy. Um,
Well, Ruth and I always watch the Indy 500, but after that I flipped back and forth watching the Nationals and the Orioles because they're on almost simultaneously. Poor National blew another one and gave up a tying home run. The home run actually broke the scoreboard. I mean, the guy hit it so hard. But then the Orioles, I mean, those two guys at the end of their bullpen.
yeah,
I call them the beasts. Those guys, Kano, and then the closer. Oh my goodness, that was impressive. Just watching those two guys. But the Rangers did beat them 2 out of 3.
Yeah, the Orioles, but they were in Texas, and for them not to get swept, I take the little because they're still building. I mean, they got such a great record at 34-19.
Yeah, they're number 2. They got the second best record.
Yeah, and that's at 34-19 and have the second best record because the Rays are just balling. They're just 39-16. Everybody in that division is over 500. The poor Blue Jays did all that rebuilding and thought, hey, we're going to make a difference. And them poor guys are in fifth place and going to end up being sellers.
They're not. They can't. They don't. Their pitching is so spotty.
Right.
They got the lineup. Their pitching is.
I don't know what kind of pitching you need in that division. I mean, like Matt Chapman, they're talking about him being a trade piece or whatever because he's in his final year to get some more pitching. But it's for a future if you're not going to do it now. Because they're 28-26, Dad, and 10.5 games back.
Right. And the Twins are 27-26 and lead their division.
Right. That's why I wish they just make it all one division. Because it's really not with the wild card, it kind of helps it out. But if you took the top 6 teams, you're looking at 5 of them right now, and all of them are in one division. So, you got the Rangers at 33-19, Astros at 31-21, Mariners at 28-25. They're starting to make a little noise. They passed the Angels this week in win percentage and loss column. They're 1 game difference. Mariners have played 1 less game. It's pretty much where we thought everybody would be. I thought the Guardians would be a little bit closer to 500. We still got a lot of baseball. Like you said, I think they are last in runs scored.
And yes, they just don't score. First of all, they have a big ballpark, and they just don't. They have no power. Outside of one guy, they don't have power. So
Naylor,
you don't need to hit a lot of home runs, but they just don't. They don't hit. Period.
Right. And they got a Quan, but that one guy doesn't make a difference when it comes to that. The Twins are just better, a little bit better. When you look at that division, the Twins are just a little bit better in pitching. They're a little bit better in hitting. They got more power than everybody else. But the Tigers, some of those young bucks are starting to play what they're supposed to be. Riley Green, Torkelson. Torkelson's still not batting huge. I think he's still like in 200 range. But he's starting to get the RBIs and the power starting to come a little bit. And their pitching is starting to come around. So they might be a little trouble. We'll see how that goes. They're a surprise team where they're at. I would think the White Sox and the Tigers would be flipped around in that division. But that's going to be a fun division to watch because anybody can win it. I mean, the Royals could even make a run and do something. Rangers, still the surprise. That's the team we're going to talk about tonight or today. Astros, Mariners, Angels. The Athletics, we've talked about them last week. They're just They got the okay from Vegas or the state to build the stadium this week. They will be voting on it in the meetings, so it looks like all systems are go. I did see the plans for what they're wanting to build, and holy smokes, have you seen those plans? I mean,
it's a 30,000 seat stadium.
I know it makes the Raider Stadium just look like like a regular old stadium.
Well, the Raiders proved that Las Vegas is the next place for every major sports league is going to try to get a
right
team there. I mean, everybody.
Right. Yeah. I just don't know how, because football's played on the weekend, and Vegas is such a weekend destination spot. And also Raiders help. I mean, Raiders fans are all over the country. I grew up with Raiders fans on the East Coast. They travel. They traveled when they were in Oakland. They traveled when they were in LA to go see the team at least once a year. And I mean, I know my friends this year, they went to Vegas and had a great time. Because now you don't go just for the football game. You're going for a vacation. It's a Vegas trip.
Well, I mean, you got the casinos, you got good restaurants, you got shows.
Yeah, it's just they got everything there.
I mean, they don't have snow in the winter. I mean, it's
well, they do in the mountains, and it gets chilly there, but not as bad as other places. And they could close the roof. We'll go to the National League. Braves, they're still chugging along. Strider last night is Strider. That dude possibly on the route of Cy Young.
They won 2 out of 3 from the Phillies. But Atlanta it says a lot for their organization to lose 2 starting pitchers and still be leading their division.
Well, they told that Dodd kid or whatever came up, and he's not Tom Glavine or anything, but he would be a number 2 or 3 on a lot of teams. So Marlins in second place. Good for them. That excites me a little bit. Having a team that's been so bad for so long, they're in second place. They probably got the best starting pitching in that division. Good for them. And my Mets are sitting at 500 because they have no pitching. We were talking before we went on. They're Verlander, Scherzer, starting to pick it up a little bit. The Phillies are just such a disappointment.
There's 2 big disappointments. Well, there's 3 to me. Toronto, and they still have a winning record. So I can't completely say they're, a big, huge disappointment. But Toronto's won. The Phillies are, and the biggest disappointment to me is San Diego. San Diego, to me, is the biggest disappointment in baseball. With that lineup?
Yeah.
Now, I know Machado was out yesterday, and Bogarts was playing with a bad wrist, and what's his name? The third baseman, he was out too. But still, I mean, Machado was out too. So come on, guys, that team is a whole lot better than that.
Right.
Than what they're playing.
Well, their starting pitching is on paper. Their starting pitching is one of the best ones in the league, and they're not pitching that way.
Go back and look at some of the games that Darvish and the few of their starting pitchers pitched last year. They weren't all that great.
Right. Well, the Nationals, they have 23 wins. They're only 7 games under 500. They have a great. I had Bobbles on one of my regular shows, and we talked about it last night. They have a great you can see the nucleus of the future on that team. They got to make probably some hard trade deadlines that some people are gonna really not like, but to build a future, they're going to have to trade away some good parts to get more better parts.
Well, look at the Orioles. They traded away Mancini. And the people in Baltimore were ready to hang this general manager. Now the team's playing like it's playing. Nobody's saying anything now.
Right. And Mancini got a ring. So win-win.
Yeah, the Nationals, like yesterday, they played well enough to win. They pitched well enough to win. Their biggest problem is they have absolutely no power. So they leave a lot of people on base. They leave a lot of people in scoring position because they don't have anybody who can knock the ball out of the park.
I can tell you this. When I play fantasy baseball, and when I need a pitching outing, first thing I do is see if a pitcher's out there that's playing the Nationals that day, because I'm not worried about giving up a lot of runs or home runs. So, and it's a good chance they're going to get a win, or a no decision. So I won't lose a point. But you go to the Central, you have Brewers first, but they're looking mighty shaky. But again, this is the Central. Both Centrals. Pirates are in second still at 500, and everybody else has a losing record.
And the Reds are doing better than I thought they would.
Right. The Reds, they're a scrappy team. And, I mean, they got good veteran leadership, and that means a lot. They got Mr. Red, Votto. He's not there just to get at bats and try to.
And they got that young pitcher Hunter, who throws 100 miles an hour. I saw him the other day.
103. He'll get up there. And he's a big dude. I saw him in person before he had his shoulder surgery, when he was on the projection to be in the majors 3 years ago. And man, he is a big man. He is. I don't know how tall he is, but I was definitely looking straight up in the air. Cubs at 22-30. Watching the Mets play the Cubs, and I've watched a little bit of some Cubs games. They got a couple players. I like Dansby Swanson, and watch a couple other players. I think they should be better than 22-30. They have Stroman, who's pitching lights out this year, but they're 22-30. They're having struggles, a lot of struggles. But that's where at the beginning of the year, I thought that's where they'd be at. But I thought the Reds and the Pirates would be below the Cubs.
Yeah, I did too. Pirates, to me, the Pirates and the Reds are two of the teams that have really surprised me, because
you see, the Pirates played all those better teams, and everybody was like, okay, this is the Pirates. But they're playing 500 ball still. I mean, right. In the Central, 500 ball gets you striking distance. And then with the problem, we'll get into this in the next couple of weeks, because the trade season, a lot of the major league procrastinators are saying that it's the guys that in the know is this weekend starts the trade season. And we start finding out who is in it to win it and who's in it to rebuild. So when you're in the Central, that's we talked about it a little bit last week. That is decision making. Do we go for it? Do we go for the playoffs this year? Do we make trades to better our team now, or do we make trades to better our team in the future? And that's going to be fun to watch. That's an extra part to the season to baseball guys like us that's interesting. And then you go out to the West. You got Dodgers in first. Nobody, didn't think that. But the Diamondbacks are in second, game and a half back, 30-23. That is real surprising. Then the Giants decided, hey, we're still alive. We're 4.5 games back at 27-26. Like you said, Padres 24-29, 7.5 games back. So back to the Padres, and I had a little difficulty. I know my dad kept talking. Hopefully my edit is good. The Padres, injuries, they need to figure out which direction they're going. The Rockies, their outfield is horrible. I've stated it before. They let the Mets in those games a lot closer than what they were, because they have bad outfield and bad pitching. But
the problem with the Rockies is that they have to play half the season on the road. And they're built for Colorado, but when they go on the road, they're not built for the road. They're built for Colorado in high altitude. So it has an effect on the pitching, the hitting, on everything. And like you said, their outfield is horrible. They just have no defense. They're slow, and they
give up a lot of runs.
Out of position.
Well, they remind me of a softball. I've said it before. Some other teams are the same way. you get 9 sluggers and try to figure out what position to put them in. That's softball. But that's what I mean. You said it. That's the stadium they built. That's where they are at. I mean, the only way to fix that is to back the fences up another 100 feet. So, but that
Well, I have something from the Dodgers.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, this was my favorite player. I don't know if you can see him.
Yeah.
Duke Snider. That was after his 1956 season. And when I was a little kid, he was my favorite player, and the Dodgers were my favorite team. And it was just, my wife saw this. She went to a little, I don't know, flea market or something with a friend of hers several years ago and saw that, knew he was my favorite player, so she had it laminated, gave it to me for my birthday. So I've kept it ever since. But that he was my favorite. I mean, think about this when I was a kid. The center field in New York was covered by Duke Snider, Mickey Mantle, and Willie Mays. 3 guys that were halfway decent. I mean, it's something to think. I mean, all that talent in one city.
Right.
It was amazing.
Well, you got to also remember that you had half the baseball teams we have now. And they're talking about
16 teams. There was 8 teams in each league.
Right. So they're talking about expanding. And I've talked this with my friends before. And, this is an all-season thing we could talk about. But if you expand it real quick, it's just going to water down some of the talent that we have now. And that's something that's a future talk for an all-season. That we could talk a whole show about that. But today, the next thing is, I wanted to talk a little bit about upcoming series. So there's some big series. There were some big ones this past weekend. I know this next weekend, the Yankees and Dodgers and some classics. But I mean, again, it just seems like now at the beginning of the year we had some not very good matchups. We're going to see what the Twins have. They play Houston this week. Atlanta has 3 wins. They're playing Oakland. The Dodgers are playing Washington. But I'm looking at that's the Monday. So today or Tuesday, Mets are playing the Phillies. In that division, that's going to probably decide who's in a playoff spot. And I'm talking really early in the year for these. And I know that today is not the end of the year. But when you start getting 4 or 5 games back in the dog days, you got to make up a game a week. That's usually how you look at it. So those weeks start running out very quickly after the All-Star break. So you kind of got to start looking ahead a little bit. Let me look for the weekend. So let's see, when the calendar flips, Mets, Toronto, Cincy, Milwaukee. That's going to be interesting this weekend. Let's see, Pittsburgh, St. Louis this weekend.
Who does Baltimore play?
Baltimore will be playing San Francisco they started West Coast swing.
Oh, okay.
So they are playing right now Cleveland.
Yeah, that's a day game today.
Right. And what I wanted to touch on a little bit when I was looking at the schedule for today's games, a lot of afternoon. We are Memorial Day. Thank you for everybody that served, and remember those that have paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms. Nothing is lost in my household on that. We appreciate you.
Yeah, both my parents were in World War II, but both of them came home.
Right. And
my mom never left. She was in the Army Medical Corps on the East Coast.
Yeah, and I've had family members as far back as I can remember in pretty much every war. So thank you for that. But anyway, today's games, Today is all. I mean, outside of July, 4th of July, it's hamburgers, hot dogs, apple pie, Chevrolet, and baseball. There's no games on regular TV today. ESPN, Fox, FS1, nothing. Not that I can see. It's all local broadcasting. I was kind of flabbergasted when I saw that. I take that back. I see FS1 has Houston and LA tonight. I apologize.
And that's tonight, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's on Fox Sports 1. So, but they have all these day games. It's not a lot of games today. 3, 6, 7 games. But none of the day games are on, they're on MLB Network. I don't know how MLB Network has 4 games at the same time going, but they do, according to this.
Well, they'll show 1 or 2 games. They'll have 2 games to show, and you'll get one or the other.
Right.
Because I have MLB, and that's what they'll say. You're either going to get the Guardians and the Orioles, or you're going to get the Cubs and the Cardinals or something. And since Masson has the local contract for the Orioles, we get the Cubs and the Cardinals on MLB.
I'm looking at the wrong date to tell you that. My fault. A little bit more games. Major League Baseball, MLB has a few games on today. Fox Sports 1 does have one at LA and the White Sox tonight. But see, when they say Fox Sports 1, that could be a local channel too, because Fox Sports has some local channels too. But I'm hoping that's a national game. Because
FS1 is a national channel with me.
Right. And you have MLB has at 4:10 2 games, and at 1 o'clock 2 games. But you'll get your Baltimore games at 1 o'clock today. Hopefully that's on my MLBN. I don't have Major League Baseball. Never mind. But anyway, I thought ESPN and all of them would have, because I don't have Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball is not on every way how you get your cable, right? It's only on, I think it's on quite a bit, but not on all of them. So I'm going to miss out on those games. But I thought ESPN, Fox Sports 1 would have afternoon, TBS. Well,
Fox doesn't have base. Fox might have had a game today, but the race was postponed in Charlotte because of the rain yesterday. So they're going to race today. So that'll take 3 or 4 hours today.
It's raining down here today too, so I can tell you
they might not race till tomorrow.
Yeah,
we got thunderstorms today.
I live 45 minutes from Charlotte. Well, I'm actually even closer to where the racetrack is. The racetrack's in Concord outside of Charlotte. And it's raining here. So call it for rain all day. It's been like that all weekend. But I just thought I'd bring that. It kind of just, when I saw no games on ESPN today, it kind of was like, so what are you telecasting today, ESPN? I mean, you have the hockey game tonight. I don't know if that's on ESPN or not. It's the Western Conference. So
it's probably on. That might be on ESPN because I think the NBA game is on TNT.
Right. But it's Memorial Day. It should be baseball day on regular TV for everybody to watch. Something. Just kind of a nitpicking thing when I looked at it. Kind of just hit me the wrong way. I just feel like in years past it was like Memorial Day. You can see, but I know a lot of times I was watching local channels. So, and also back in the day when you had the super stations of Atlanta Braves and the Cubs, you can watch them pretty much every day. But I just want to touch on that a little bit. Anything that you want to talk about in the baseball world that to me this season, nobody, we've talked about it before. I haven't seen any great, I mean, outside of my man Pete Alonso already hitting 20 home runs this year. I don't see anybody really going crazy this year, going nuts. You have some injuries that stop some of that. you got guys that are just being themselves, Strider's being Strider, some of the other guys. But have anything you noticed, good, bad, indifferent, that you wanted to touch on today?
No, I just I touched on it last week about the strike zone, and I saw some more horrendous calls. But I mean, it's apparently that's part of the game, and
Right.
and it just seems to be worse this year, where balls right down the middle are called balls, and then balls that are 3 inches, 4 inches outside of the strike zone are called a strike. It's part of the game now, and I'm getting more used to it every week. So I saw about 4 or 5 over the weekend that were just, I just can't, I don't understand how they missed it, but they missed it. But that's neither here nor there.
Right. Hey,
No, the biggest thing for me is watching the Orioles and those 2 guys that come out of the bullpen at the end of the game. And their closer made one mistake. He threw a splitter to Judge, and he left it out over the plate, and Judge hit it about 6 miles.
yeah, but if you do it to somebody else in that lineup, they might not handle it as well.
Exactly.
Just the wrong pitch to the wrong guy. That's Judge is one of those guys, like, he's going to come up big in big moments. You just know it. He's just one of those guys. He's
a world-class hitter.
He's a guy. He's one of the guys.
Ohtani has come back a little bit. He's in a bit of a slump at the plate, and he's having a little bit more problems. He's having problems on the mound hitting the strike zone. He's walking a lot of people, so he's come back to earth a little bit.
Well, one thing, because I had to get used to it with Senga for the Mets. God, he's a workhorse. He wants to win so bad. I love it. But when I get these players from the Asian leagues, walking is not a bad thing. Not giving into the hitter is not a bad thing. But it does put people on base to score. And in Japan, if you get the next guy out, then nothing's hurt. And that's kind of how they play. It's a lot of full counts. A lot of that baseball has come over here now that international play is so big in our league. I mean, you have a lot of people from all over the world playing in our league. So a lot of that baseball, the liveliness of Hispanic play, the way the pitchers pitch from the Asian leagues, how batters from the Asian leagues and Hispanic leagues attack the plate is different, and it's healthy. It just makes the league better. But today we're going to talk about the Rangers, a team that's a big surprise, I think, to everyone, but a pleasant. I think I don't think a lot of people, when it comes to the Rangers, when you say Rangers, go, "Oh, I hate the Rangers." They're either going to be, "Oh, that's my favorite team because I'm from Texas," or they're indifferent about them. I feel like I'm a little indifferent. It doesn't break my heart that they're playing well. I like it. I think it's good for base. Anybody that has been struggling and does well is good for.
Well, Johnny Oates, when he was there managing them, we rooted for him then. Because
right, of course. And I mean, Curtis Wilkerson from Dinwiddie, Virginia, played there. Just to throw out a Virginia. And hey, Virginia hosting a regional. First time since like 2006 or something crazy like that. Just want to throw that out there real quick. Texas, what do you have on their long history?
Well, but they haven't won a lot. So, but anyway, in 1961, the Washington Senators started out as an expansion team because the Senators that had been there for years, and years, and we'll do one on just them one week. They moved to Minnesota and became the Twins.
Right.
And Bob Short outbid a group led by Bob Hope to buy the expansion Senators, and he kept them there until 1972. And then in 1971 or 70 and 71, 70, he traded, or the team traded one of their best pitchers in the entire left side of their infield to the Tigers for Denny McLain. And Denny McLain was horrible by then. So they really lost a lot of games after that. And they had Ted Williams as a manager. And so in 72, Short decided to move the team to Arlington, Texas, just to move them there. So for the second time, Washington lost their baseball team, and they went to Arlington, Texas, and they were decent, but they weren't all that great. In 74, a couple of years later, though, they had Billy Martin as the manager, and they actually finished second behind the Oakland A's, which had a powerhouse in the 1970s. And they had Cliff Lee, Vladimir Guerrero. They were, two of the outstanding players on the team. Then they didn't do much. From 85 to 94, they had people like Nolan Ryan, Juan Gonzalez, Ruben Sierra, Julio Franco, Rafael Palmeiro, and Bobby Valentine was one of their managers. But they never could get over the hump. They could get into playoffs, but they couldn't win in the first round. The Yankees used to beat them a lot. And then in 89, George Bush, who became president, his group bought the team. Later on, in 2010, they became the last of the 30 teams in 50 years to advance to the second round of the playoffs. And they beat the Yankees for the title, the American League title, and then lost to the Giants in 5 games in the World Series. Now, this hat I'm wearing is their World Series hat from the next year. And that, they won the pennant, they won the American League again in 2011, and they lost to the Cardinals in 7 games. This hat, you went to Dallas to watch the Cowboys play with some buddies, and the World Series was playing right across the parking lot. You guys went over there, but the game was sold out. You couldn't get in, so you bought me this hat and brought it home from the World Series. That's how I got the hat. But that was the last time. After that,
I forgot about the hat thing. Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of went down. They went back to being kind of irrelevant after that. But those were their 2 big runs, were those 2 years, and then they just they've been scrambling ever since. So there's not a whole lot to report on them. I mean, they've had some good players, but like you said, they're not on. If you back here in Virginia, you never see them on TV unless the Orioles are playing them. I'd see those games, but that was it. I mean, they just weren't on TV. They didn't have really any really great players. They had good players, but now that new ownership is they put a good team together. And
well, they got a beautiful stadium.
Those boys can hit.
my friends that live down there, they go to that stadium. They love that stadium. That stadium is beautiful. I need to get down there. How I kind of look at the legacy of a team is I actually look at the Hall of Famers, and they do have some Hall of Famers that are known for being Texas Rangers and not really at other teams, which is like Fergie Jenkins, Pudge. Pudge made his way around the league a little bit. They got Nolan Ryan, of course, but again, I think a lot of his best years were maybe Astros.
Yeah. And the Angels.
Right. They got Vladimir Guerrero, Bert Blyleven, Harold Baines, Goose Gossage, which I think a lot of his better years were with.
See, well, a lot of those guys came to them late.
Right. But I mean, Fergie Jenkins was there for a while.
Yeah.
Pudge was there for a while. Whitey Herzog, he's just a great manager. But I think he's more known as a Cardinals manager. So, I look at that. Now, this year's team, I mean, I pulled up their depth chart, and the first thing I see is 3 pitchers are on the IL.
Yeah.
And they're in first place. Odorizzi and Glenn Otto. Odorizzi's no slouch. Otto is probably their 4th pitcher, but they got Martin Perez, John Gray, who's pitching well this year, Henney, Nathan Eovaldi. They only got 4 pitchers on their starting depth chart, so they must pray for rain on the 5th day. But when I know their catcher has been a surprise this year. He's a young man that's been already around the league through the minors a little bit. He's having a great year.
Oh, I got Seager.
Jana him. What do you say, Deb?
Seager
For
Texas.
Texas,
The shortstop.
Oh yeah, Corey Seager. I'm sorry, something like
they got him and Simeon on the infield, and that's made the infield better, and they both hit. Nathaniel
Lowe, who was born in Norfolk, Virginia. His dad was a Navy man. Nathaniel Lau. No, he's Lowe. I'm sorry. He is Lowe. Brandon is Lau.
Brandon Lau and Lau and Lowe.
They say it differently, but he is a straight up raking this year. He's a big man, a lot of power. Second base is Marcus Simeon, who's no slouch. Third base, so Josh Jung. He's a rookie. He is a good rookie. Corey Seager, as you said before, who was, his best days was probably early on with the Dodgers, but he's still above average shortstop. He still filled a position. He still hits, just not the same level. Now I look at the outfield. They got some decent outfielders. I mean, nothing that jumps out at me, but I mean, they're just a well put together team. I look at their designated hitters, and two of them are on the IL. But I mean,
and they're still winning.
Yeah, and they're still winning. I brought up. I like to look at depth charts and teams, especially winning teams, and usually they have a lot of depth. They have a lot of depth, which is goodness because they got key players on the IL. When being a Mets fan and DeGrom went down, I got text messages. Surprise, surprise. We knew it was going to happen. Almost say you need to schedule it with him just so he can have his days off. He's had those issues ever since they took the sticky stuff away. It's coincided with that. I'm not going to say it's 1 = 1 on that one, but that's kind of the way it went. Do you think Texas will continue on with their winning this year? I mean, do you think they're built for it to last?
Well, the weak part of their team is the bullpen, and the bullpen is probably the most important unit. If you're going to win anything, you've got to have a bullpen because your starters don't finish, so right. You have to have a bullpen. And the thought is that they do have some pieces down on the farm. They may try to trade for some established relievers at the trade deadline. So I'm thinking that they're still in rebuild mode, but what they're thinking is it all depends on what their schedule. What you said a little while ago. Whatever their schedule is at the deadline will make them decide whether they're going to sell or buy. It's going to Houston they're starting to get people back from the injured list, and they're starting to win games. So it'll depend on how many games they're behind Houston, which will determine what they're going to. I think what they'll do.
Houston went and played the Mariners, and they pretty much said, "Here, son, hold my beer." They kind of put them in their place and let them know we're still top dogs. They did it to LA. When it comes to divisional play, it seems like when they go head to head, they just let the teams know we're Houston. We're not going anywhere. You can throw trash cans or whatever at us. We don't care. That's just a very, very good team.
It's a very good organization.
Yeah, well built. And I think Texas, to me, they're in a position where if you're not good enough to win the World Series or at least challenge for the pennant, you got to make some moves. I think they got to get a little younger in pitching. I think they need to get a little younger in some key roles. I don't think they have the depth as other teams. When you look at starting positions, but those starters, it's tough to play 162 games. and not be hurt at the end of the year. Um, I think they need a little bit more, a little bit better bench players, and that doesn't cost a lot. That's just having good scouting. Uh, but that's just me giving a quick glance. Now, do they have a chance? Heck yeah, I've said it before. If you get into the playoffs and you got two guys pitching well and that are top line, which they had the chance of any of these guys. None of these guys are slouches that are on the IL or even the IL. Two of their guys are on 60-day IL, so that means they're probably out for the season. I don't know what Odorizzi or Otto are out on. Forgive me on that. They might have shoulder, elbow.
Well, if they get DeGrom and one of the other guys back and make it to the playoffs, so they can pitch in the playoffs, they'll have a puncher's chance.
Right, and that's the Phillies did it last year. I've said it before. Teams have done it in the past. This way they got the playoff system set up. You just got to get in to have a chance. And these teams that win 100 games, they're built for the season and not for the playoffs. I've said it. I say it all the time. Stop looking at the stats so much when they get into the playoffs and look what they do against good teams, against not top line pitching. Because to get 100 wins, you just beat up on the bad teams. You just beat up. You win the games you're supposed to win. You beat all the bad pitchers. But that doesn't necessarily translate to the 1 and 2 pitchers and the top teams. If you see a team that strikes out a lot against top pitching that does not make contact, usually doesn't translate well to the playoffs. Just been my opinion in the last few years, and been more right than wrong on that. My shoulder still hurts, so I'm not going to pat my back for that one. But that's just the way I look at it. I think the Rangers have like you said, a puncher's chance if they get in. Any two of those pitchers, three.
Well, they had a few games over the weekend where, like, there were 7 home runs were hit in those games. I mean, it was like home run derby. I said they're starting to go back to way they were before, where it's all the launch angle and that, and there's but
see, when it gets to the playoffs, kind of all that goes out the window.
Because the strikeouts go up.
Right, you have to make contact. You have to. When you play good pitching, you have to make. It's all about putting men on base. You don't have a chance if you don't have anybody on base. It's a lot easier to hit a base hit than it is to hit one. Even though last night when Schwarber hit a home run, they put up a stat. I think it said he's hit 5 home runs since his last single. So I don't know if that's good, bad, indifferent. I don't know what they're looking for from it. But anyway, anything else, Dad, to close out? The season's going along. I'm having fun watching it. There's a lot of teams that are in it for until the end, it looks like, and it's just going to make it fun for the rest of the year. Anything you like to add?
No, not really. I'm just hopeful that the injuries stay down, because I like to see the good players play. In any sport, I want to see the best players on the field.
Exactly.
And even the teams that I don't particularly care for, I don't want their stuff. I've had friends of mine who rooted that somebody would get hurt so their team would win. Yeah. I've never been like that. If I can't beat your best, then I don't deserve to win. It's as simple as that. And so, but I want to see the best players play. When I watch the Yankees, I want to see Stanton on the field.
Right.
I don't want to see him in the dugout in civilian clothes or in sweatpants talking to his teammates. I want to see him on the field. I want to see him at the plate. He's one of the best players in the game.
We've seen him live at Washington.
Oh.
He hit a home run. I don't know if it's landed yet. That thing was probably the highest.
I'm just using him as an example.
But once you said that name, that when he was with Miami, we saw him hit that home run. It was like, oh my God. And he's so big. He's one of the. That's why I like to see the Yankees one time live to see how big Judge is. I've seen Stanton, and he's a big man, well put together. As a young teenager, I was lucky enough to see Winfield and that bunch with New York. But Winfield was big. I like to see some of the John Rauch might be the biggest guy I've ever seen on the field, but
yeah, he was huge.
TV doesn't do them justice, and to see how small or how big they are. I guess that's the point that I'm trying to make. It's hard to really see, and going to the park and seeing those guys. It's just like first time I ever walked through at RFK Stadium and went through the tunnel and saw the flight players. I've been around high school and college players, but to see 100 guys on that field that are put together like that in the NFL, it's kind of it stops you for a moment that you're like, man, how do these people live? Like, how's this happen?
Yeah, you see NFL players or and you just look at them and say, I don't see anything like that walking down the street in my hometown.
Right. And I mean, same thing with
where do these people come from?
Right. You're like, what? I mean, but anyway, we're getting a little off topic, but that's what we are. But we're gonna end it there. All right. Till next week, we'll probably figure out who we're going to talk about.
Well, you'll be home this weekend, so we'll talk about it then.
Yeah. My niece is my dad's granddaughter is getting married this weekend, so I'm going home for that. So me and him will chat about it then. So until next Monday, keep watching the games. Hashtag watch the games, and enjoy some baseball. Like, share, tell a friend. Welcome to some of my new subscribers. I know I've got quite a few this past week. This is different. I don't do cards or anything. We just talk baseball. And as you can tell, sometimes we go past that too. And my dad showed a card today. So we have that. So until next time, see ya.